Hello everyone, welcome to Haunt Hive TV title, The Shadows Within. As the clock struck midnight, casting eerie shadows across the old house, Sarah found herself alone. Her friends had left earlier, citing various excuses, leaving her with nothing but the creaking floors and the howling wind for company. The house had always felt a bit off, with its ancient wooden beams and unsettling silence. But tonight, as Sarah sat in the dimly lit living room, the sense of unease was palpable. She tried to distract herself with a book, but every creak of the floorboards made her heart race. It was as though the house itself was alive, watching her with unseen eyes. Then, from the corner of her eye, Sarah saw something move, a flicker of movement in the darkness beyond the doorway. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling. There was no response, only the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. With a shaky hand, she reached for her phone, intending to call for help, but the screen remained dark, no matter how many times she pressed the power button. Panic rising, Sarah stood up, her legs shaky as she moved toward the doorway. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. The darkness seemed to swallow her whole, enveloping her in its suffocating embrace. She fumbled for the light switch, but when she flicked it on, nothing happened. Darkness persisted, unyielding and oppressive. And then she heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible over the pounding of her own heart. Sarah froze, her skin prickling with dread. It sounded like her own name. "Sarah." The voice seemed to come from all directions at once, echoing through the empty halls of the house. She tried to run, but her legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot as though held by invisible hands. "Who's there?" she cried, her voice trembling with fear. But there was no response, only the sound of her own ragged breathing. And then, from the depths of the darkness, she saw them, the shadows, writhing and twisting like living things. They moved closer, their inky tendrils reaching out for her with hungry anticipation. Sarah wanted to scream, to flee, but she was paralyzed with terror, unable to move as the shadows closed in around her. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The shadows receded, melting back into the darkness from whence they came. Sarah stood alone in the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest as she struggled to comprehend what had just happened. With trembling hands, she made her way back to the living room, where she huddled in the corner, waiting for the first light of dawn to banish the horrors of the night. But even as the sun rose, casting its warm light across the room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was still being watched, that the shadows were still lurking, just out of sight, waiting for their next opportunity to strike. Thank you for watching and subscribe.